Hello and welcome to News Round, a recap of stories that made headlines during the week. First of all, let's get the headlines. As campaigns officially commence for the 2023 general elections, presidential candidates signed a peace accord agreeing to run an issue-based campaign. And the Senate rejects bill seeking to legalize the rotation of power among the 6 geopolitical zones in the country. The Central Bank of Nigeria raises the monetary policy rate, which measures interest rate to 15.5% from 14%. Plus, Hurricane Ian threatens the Carolinas after battering Florida. And that's News Round in View. We'll begin our News Round in the nation's capital, where presidential candidates of the 18 political parties gathered at the International Conference Center to sign a peace accord, agreeing to run an issue-based campaign devoid of personal attacks. One of the frontline candidates and presidential flag bearer of the All Progressives Congress, Chief Bola Tinubu, was absent. During the signing, supervised by the National Peace Committee, the Chairman General Abdulsalami Abubakar warned that disinformation is already creating a toxic environment and asked politicians to caution their followers.
The chairman of the National Peace Committee, General Abdulsalami Abubakar, and other prominent members of the committee, including the Sultan of Sokoto, the convener, Bishop Hassan Kuka, arrived at the International Conference Center in Abuja for the signing of the first peace accord for the 2023 general elections by political parties, chairmen, and their presidential candidates. The National Peace Committee first initiated the signing of a peace accord in 2015 and also in 2019 to make political parties and their candidates commit to peaceful general elections. As the countdown to the 2023 general elections begins with the campaigns, the National Peace Committee is rallying all 18 presidential candidates and their party chairmen to commit to issue-based campaigns devoid of fake news and disinformation, which they say is already a threat to the 2023 general elections.
Fake news and misinformation continue to pose a significant threat to 2023 general elections. We are calling on politicians to address issues that are fundamental to the Nigerian citizens.
The Independent National Electoral Commission will vigorously monitor compliance to ensure that parties shun abusive, intemperate, or slanderous language likely to provoke a breach of the peace during the electioneering campaigns.
In separate recorded messages, both President Buhari and former President Goodluck Jonathan urged politicians to raise the bar for a peaceful electioneering process in Nigeria.
I appeal to the contestants, especially their publicity agents and media advisors, to shun personal attacks and to commit to issue-based campaigns and political rallies.
In 2023, expect our country to raise the bar of credible and transparent elections and ensuring that our electoral processes are peaceful, free, and fair.
However, the Inspector General of Police warns against the deployment of personnel or state-owned security outfits for the campaigns and on the day of the elections.
There are currently not less than 88 different quasi-national security outfits established by state governments, local governments, as well as other non-state regulated security outfits across the country under various nomenclatures. Any attempt, therefore, by any political actor at any level to form or deploy such outfits to advance partisan interests will amount to an offense punishable under the Electoral Act.
Presidential candidates from the 18 political parties and their chairmen then take turns to sign the peace accord, symbolizing their consent to a peaceful electioneering process.
Chairman, National Rescue Movement.
While the signing of the peace accord is quite significant in the electioneering process, the onus now rests on the candidates and their supporters who are expected to implement the spirit and letter of the signed document.
We think about Nigeria first because we are all Nigerians, and that we ensure that it's an issue-based campaign.
At least one person must lead at the end of the day, so there's no point creating violence among ourselves just because of election.
It's barely 5 months to the general elections in 2023, and how this exercise turns out will, to a large extent, depend on the conduct of politicians and their supporters.
And power rotation remains an unresolved issue in Nigeria's political lexicon. The Senate, in its sitting, has revisited the idea of power rotation among the geopolitical zones of the country, but the debate was inconclusive. The bill, sponsored by Senator Abba Moro of Benue South, had earlier passed the first reading, while some senators argue that it will bring about unity and a sense of belonging for all, especially ethnic minorities. Others say it will go against the nation's constitution.
1053, first reading taken.
The Red Chamber of the National Assembly comes alive as senators reconvene for plenary.
On this very vital national issue,
as the senators get down to business, Senator Abba Moro is called on to lead the debate on his bill, which is up for second reading.
In Nigeria, a multi-ethnic and diverse nation, the need to alternate power across the zones and governorship among the senatorial districts of the country cannot be overemphasized. This is because power rotation can be a veritable tool for our national integration, unity, inclusion, peace, and political stability.
However, some senators vehemently kick against the bill, which makes Senator Abba Moro hurriedly withdraw the bill through Order 42 of the Senate Standing Rules.
Mr. President, we don't need to codify. Why are we waiting to codify this into law? Charity begins at home. While waiting to codify this into law, why don't we do what is right? Why don't we do what is needful? The North haven't had power for 8 years, power should come to the South. So they should tell their presidential candidate to step down from the race.
No matter how we try to allow our sentiments to drive our desire for a very united, equitable country, we equally have a responsibility to balance that with the oath of office we have taken as senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, i.e., to uphold, protect, and defend the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And where the Constitution specifically has prescribed the requirement for emerging into each of the offices created by the Constitution, it may be very, very difficult for this Senate to, by way of legislation, upset that provision of the Constitution.
After plenary, the Senate Committee on the Independent National Electoral Commission screened the 19 nominees sent by the President as resident electoral commissioners. However, the nominees from Sokoto, Ebonyi, Imo, and Benue states have petitions against their nominations.
There is no way state government would have suspended me, come back and take me and begin to give me these positions, making waves. It's in record, it's everywhere. I never was suspended.
I'm not a member of any political party. I have never been a member of any political party. This is just one of these fake and fabricated and false petition, which is aimed at possibly tarnishing my image and possibly seeking to prevent the distinguished senators from approving my nomination.
Today, the Senate passed an amendment to the Court of Appeal Act, and in this new act, there's a provision to increase the number of judges from 90 to 110. Dele Omoyeni, Channels Television News.
And to the lingering ASUU strike action, the leadership of the House of Representatives has stepped up its efforts to end the strike with another meeting with the Academic Staff Union and government representatives. The Speaker of the House informed ASUU that the white paper on revitalization fund has been received and is awaiting the President's approval. Also, the head of service of the Federation raised concerns over what she described as rampant employment in universities, which he says is a burden for the government, which has been borrowing to pay salaries.
The leadership of the House of Representatives met with concerned parties regarding the ASUU strike with a view to ensuring that students in tertiary institutions resume academic activities as soon as possible.
You have also said that
one of the issues in contention is the payment system for universities.
Is there any country in the world where salaries for lecturers are paid from the Office of Accountant General? Where is the idea of the law? Let me be patriotic to Nigeria. Are they using the central bank? Are they not peculiar? They don't have law? Are they using it neither?
You see, one of the risks in thinking of even adopting UTEX is that if you do this, you are going to create a room for everybody to now come to say, you know what, we're also unique, give us our own. Mr. Speaker, as we speak now in the university environment, we already have two.
There are three applications. If the end of the test says that TAS or U3PS is the superior one, government should adopt that one. We are vehemently opposed to multiple applications because all that it will do is, worsen our already bad fiscal situation.
As far as university payment is concerned, the three solutions have failed our test because that is what we tested.
As the meeting progresses, a comment from the Minister of Labour leads to a slightly rowdy session.
Mr. Speaker, it's jocular, but it's still serious.
That what?
That the ASUU president said that APC government have kept children at home, and that Nigerian people should vote out people who have kept their children.
No, he didn't say that.
What did he say?
We're making progress.
Mr. Speaker,
after Adobutobi, you get the opportunity. You get the opportunity after Adobutobi.
Amid the rowdy session, the Minister of Labour excuses himself with the permission of the Speaker. When the dust settles, the head of service comments on what she describes as rampant employment in the universities, while the Speaker appeals to ASUU for a compromise.
The DG budget is always sitting on my head when it is time to pay salaries because they keep borrowing to pay salaries. The bulk of the personnel cost that government pays goes to tertiary institutions.
The white paper we told you we'll get, the letter is here. I just showed it. I just waved it. It's now waiting for President's final approval on the revitalization fund. If this is the enabling environment you're trying to get to and you're here, and you cannot get to here now, but you can get to here now, to the middle, let's take it and continue to work towards getting to that final destination.
The leadership of the House is hopeful that this may be the final meeting on the ASUU strike before meeting the President, and appeals to ASUU and the government to accept the outcome for the benefit of Nigerian students. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
Power outages are not strange in Nigeria, with many resorting to alternative energy sources. Members of the House of Representatives were treated to this sad reality during the sitting, forcing them to adjourn plenary. The outage, which occurred about 2 hours into plenary, lasted a few minutes, but the lawmakers were unable to continue with the sitting.
It's the first plenary session of the week in the House of Representatives. Before getting down to the business of the day, lawmakers consider and adopt a motion of urgent national importance on the need for the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing to ensure immediate resumption of reconstruction of the Abuja-Kaduna Expressway.
Worried that the situation on the Abuja-Kaduna Highway has become a drawback for the Nigerian economy that, if not immediately rectified, spells doom for the economy and social life of Nigerians, contrary to Section 15, subsection 1 of the Constitution, which mandates the Nigerian state to provide adequate facilities for and encourage free mobility of people, goods, and services. The House resolved to call on the Honorable Minister of Works and Housing to urgently and without further delay direct the contractor, Julius Berger PLC, to immediately return to the site and complete its reconstruction works, starting with the Jere-Kaduna stretch.
Some bills are then passed through second reading, which include the National Religious Harmony Commission Establishment Bill to provide a statutory framework for the protection of fundamental human rights of Nigerians as it relates to matters of religious freedom and liberty. The bill, among other things, seeks to provide an early warning system for government and law enforcement to detect and prevent actions liable to incite religious violence and break down law and order. Also passed through second reading is the Employees Unpaid Wages Prohibition Bill, which seeks to ensure the timely remuneration of employees, whether in the public or private sector, and improve the general welfare conditions of employment for labor in the country. Both bills were sponsored by the Speaker and some other members. As plenary progresses, lawmakers are plunged into darkness. After a few minutes in the darkness, the Speaker calls for adjournment, and lawmakers exit the chamber using their phone torchlights. Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
And African leaders may have signed the Continental Free Trade Agreement for economic collaboration, but President Muhammadu Buhari says the treaty will not work until there is business, political and security integration on the continent. The President was speaking at the second African Sub-Sovereign Governments Network Conference hosted by the Nigeria's Governors Forum and the Presidential Villa in Abuja. Take a listen.
It's the signature tune of the Guards Brigade Band, signaling the arrival of President Muhammadu Buhari at the banquet hall of the Presidential Villa. He is in company of Mr. Kehinde Fayemi at the second African Sub-Sovereign Governments Network Conference. Mr. Fayemi, who is performing his last major function as Governor of Ekiti State and Chairman of the Nigeria Governors Forum before bowing out in 2 weeks, insists that subnationals can tap into the Continental Free Trade Area Agreement.
The African Continental Free Trade Agreement has provided us with an opportunity to deepen intra-African trade by promoting a liberalized market that permits freer flow of capital, goods, services, and our people. As subnationals with a huge potential for intra-regional trade, I know that all of us here stand ready to make this dream a reality.
Mr. Benedict Orama, the president of Afrexim Bank, partners of the NGF for the event, say the bank will be spending about $40 billion in the next 5 years to ensure the success of AFTA.
For the foregoing, it is clear to us why we must put our hands together to ensure the success of the AfCFTA. And that's why Afrexim Bank is doing its bit to make sure that this happens. We've disbursed over $20 billion in the past 5 years to support intra-African trade. And we plan to do $40 billion in the next 5 years.
As President Muhammadu Buhari promises full support of his administration to the successful implementation of AFTA, he advises on issues to be addressed to ensure the agreement succeeds.
We have to understand that if this new drive towards a continental free trade area is to succeed, we must demonstrate a higher level of commitment to tackle A, the slow pace of physical integration due to geographic and political fragmentations, B, the phase of political cooperation, and C, difficult tariff and non-tariff barriers that inhibit business integration. In this regard, in May this year, at the African Union Extraordinary Summit in Malabo, I backed the recommendation of the African Union Commission to set up a standby force on terrorism on the continent.
One of the takeaways of the event is the recommendation that for subnationals to successfully tap into AfTA, they must strengthen their export value chain, which raises another key aspect of several outstanding issues to be addressed in the country.
Are you happy?
And for the third time this year, the Central Bank of Nigeria has raised interest rates from 14% to 15.5%. And the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, while justifying the raise, explains that the decision will help consolidate the impact of the last two policy rate hikes by the CBN. Last month, the annual inflation rate climbed to a 17-year high of 20.5% as the high cost of food items continue to affect citizens.
After 2 days of meeting behind closed doors, the governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria is leading members of the Monetary Policy Committee to address Nigerians on his key decisions. The central bank governor starts the meeting with a look at how events in the international market are affecting the domestic market, leading to the bank's intervention in the real sector, rising to 9 trillion naira in 3 years. While the agriculture and manufacturing sector received 66 billion naira in 2 months, its export facilitation program received a boost of 93 billion naira.
In the last 3 years, the CBN had injected over 9 trillion naira into the economy, in addition to offering 2-year moratorium for 10-year long-term loan facilities. The committee believed that these interventions have significantly helped to engender growth. However, in light of the persisting pressures of inflation, the committee encouraged the bank to maintain a close watch on the inflationary implications of these interventions.
The committee then raised the interest rate to 15.5% and the cash reserve ratio to 32.5% after consideration by committee members. However, it comes with a caution for commercial banks.
As long as we see inflation trending upwards, that I cannot, or that MPC cannot give any assurance to anybody that we will not continue to raise rates, because we've seen rates move recently very, very aggressively, and that is the reason we are following it up in the May, in the July, and now the September meeting very aggressively for us to ensure, to see to what can be done to rein in inflation.
The committee also considered the intervention to clear the backlog of debts owed airlines.
Yes, we will do everything possible, and we are determined to clear the backlog, and we will consistently at all the retail interventions. As long as the accounts of the banks are funded, we will continue to make the releases to ensure that the cumulative backlog is cleared. We would like to appeal to the countries where the foreign airlines are domiciled or where their flights originate, that they should please, and we please beg them to give Nigerian airlines also a chance to land their aircrafts in their countries.
This is the third time the Central Bank of Nigeria is increasing its monetary policy rate in 2022, as the bank insists on an economic stability plan that is responsive to Nigeria's economic growth.
Our news round ends in Florida, where at least 21 people are believed to have died in Hurricane Ian, and more than 2 million homes and businesses in the state were without power 1 day after the hurricane barreled through the state. Emergency crews are scrambling to reach trapped residents along the state's Gulf Coast as a resurgent Hurricane Ian veered toward the Carolinas after cutting a path of destruction across Florida, leaving behind deadly floodwaters, downed power lines, and widespread damage.
We have 12 unconfirmed fatalities. In Charlotte County, we have 8 unconfirmed fatalities. In Collier County, we have 1 confirmed fatality in Polk County. So that brings us up to 21 total. We do have an identified situation that was done during the hasty search of some fatalities. We do not know exactly how many were in the house, and let me paint the picture for you. The water was up over the rooftop, right? But we had a Coast Guard rescue swimmer swim down into it, and he could identify that it appeared to be human remains. We do not know exactly how many. We do not know what the situation is. And before we comment on that, we want to be transparent, but we just don't know that number. And we got a couple of other situations where we had that particular type situation. So everything that I want to talk about right now is about that search, secure, and stabilize. So we continue to have our fire rescue partners, search and rescue, going in there and conducting the what we call the hasty search, and then they're coming back and do their primary search, and then they'll do a secondary search. So again, I think it's very important for everybody to know that as a part of the search and rescue element, over a 72-hour period, there's actually 3 searches that are conducted. That hasty search is just very quick, see if they see any survivors that are alive or in a traumatic situation, and they start to move those individuals to safety. That's been conducted. Now we're back in that primary search area, which is now we're doing a little more detailed search, and then we'll do a second search behind that.
And that's News Round. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Ladi Williams. Bye for now.